Welcome. You're on with Stuart and Amy from the podcast studio in Milton Keynes, here to give you some hints and tips about how to make a successful podcast. So myself and Stuart have both got a couple of things that we want to say with our trusty Post-it notes.
We do indeed.
So we're going to go one on each. So I'm going to get you to start, Stuart, with your first one.
I knew you was going to do that to me.
Stitched you right up there, didn't I? So what's your first tip for people?
My first tip. Well, obviously my first tip would have to be to call us so that we can do it for you. But I think... am I going to pick one from your list that you've made?
Yeah, or make your own up.
And then talk about that one. Okay. Underestimate workload, the first one you put on there. Weirdly, I'd probably put that in there as one of the biggest anyway, because people definitely do. I think that people have got the perception that you walk in, press record, and then it just spits it out of the camera and you put it on YouTube, because it's absolutely not the case. And I would say that that's probably... I was thinking about this the other day. I would say the number one reason for why podcasts fail would be, it's kind of like a double-edged thing. If you've gone the route of using a production agency like us, I would say 90% fail because they can't afford to keep doing it.
Yep.
And if you're on this side, which is doing it at home, which is a lot of people do, then I would say it's the underestimating the workload for sure.
You don't think about the planning, the preparation that goes in it as the person doing the presenting role, if you like. But also then it's the follow-up, isn't it? It's the editing of the clips, which is what I like about coming here, because you do all of that. You do all of the technical stuff for me, so I don't have to think about that. And it means that actually what I then have to do is I still have to do the prep. So I still take a couple of hours to do the prep. I still have to do the marketing, and I still then have to propose guests and talk to them and do that. So to prepare an episode and come into a pre-work studio like this, where I've got the lights and the cameras set up, and then I still get the editing, it still probably takes me about 5 hours per episode, pre, during and post, to make sure that it's successful.
Of course, yeah. And that's the editing side, I would say, is probably the longest part of the whole cycle. And the other thing I think people don't think about at all is that when you've done the edit in the editing software, you've got to export that out, which takes hours to do that. And then you've got the hour or two upload to YouTube. You've got the same for Spotify. So like you are looking at, it's weird that you'd put on here one of the things 5 to 10 hours per episode. Like it's probably not far off what in total what it takes to really get an episode from sitting in the chair to polish and out on YouTube and Spotify. And I think that's why I'd say it's probably the number one reason actually why the at-home ones or in your own business ones that they make end up failing.
Prepare your time.
Yeah.
Prepare your time.
Yeah.
So the other thing, and I think this definitely took me by surprise, is the slow audience growth. So I think what we automatically assume is that people are going to be fascinated by our content, and you're going to get loads of subscribers and loads of viewers. And that's not actually the case specifically, unless you're a celebrity, probably. Then you're going to get a load of people viewing your podcast immediately.
Yeah, of course.
But actually, a lot of it comes down to marketing, to talking about it, and to promoting it. And you're probably looking at about 1 to 2 years before you are really in the game, if you like, in most cases.
Yeah, unless you're really lucky. You're that unique sort of, I'd say one-off, but maybe like 3 off. There's like 3 or 4 that sometimes, and I think that's down to the uniqueness of what their podcast is. If you look at like your podcast, for example, it is unique because there isn't, as far as I'm aware, anyone else who speaks to like business owners and brand owners from Milton Keynes and talks about their journey, their kind of roadmap to their success to get there. There's no one else that's doing that. So that makes yours unique. You know, we've got others we've got like 4 or 5 men's mental health podcasts. They're all exactly the same. As much as obviously we support that and it's a big thing. They are all the same in what they do. So that might take a little bit longer. But yeah, I'd say that's also very true about the time. Yeah.
It's being prepared, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's next on your list?
Next on my list would be number one factor in retaining audience technical. I can't see where I can't see where the line is, like this line here. So it says number one factor in retaining audience, and then it says technical/quality frustrations. Is that 2 or is that 1?
That's 1.
This is all 1. Okay.
No, sorry, they're 2 different
They're 2
ones.
separates.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So I'll do the first one, which is the number one factor in retaining audience.
Mm-hmm.
I would have to say waffling on for too long of an episode and trying to actually take into consideration, like trying to imagine what... Are you asking for my opinion on this? Yeah,
absolutely.
What my advice would be? Yeah, so I would say bring yourself out of your own egoic state when you're talking about your podcast and think about the podcasts that you might listen to. How much do you listen to of them? So I, like many other normal human beings of Earth, will listen to a podcast in the gym or on a car journey. Typically, most car journeys are 30 to 40 minutes from work, back, etc. I even listen to podcasts when I go shopping. When I go Sainsbury's, I put my headphones in so I don't have to like be with other human beings, and I listen to podcasts then. But that again is like a 30, 40 minute round trip altogether. So typically try and keep it around there. And then a really good piece of advice, and I actually didn't make it up. It was one of our clients from like a year and a half ago, and I thought it was a really good idea. They have a whiteboard and then they literally split it into quarters. So they do an hour-long podcast. They split it up into the 15 minutes, and they'll write just a generic word right in the middle of each of those. And then they will just have that kind of off camera. And they know that obviously when they're not talking. So right now I'm talking, so that camera is on me. This camera is not on you right now because you're not talking. So you could easily look over and kind of have a look at what, and if you feel like you compare that with the time when we're drifting off, bring it back in. So that's a good way of doing it as well. Kind of just splitting your episode up into equal sections and having really strong topics for each of them and not waffling on for too long.
I like that.
Yeah, which is probably a bad idea having me on one of your podcasts because I do waffle on.
I like that. I think I'm going to start employing that as a tactic, because mine currently are 45 to an hour long, and I think it's a bit too long really for people to want to listen to. But how do I break it down? So I quite like that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna think about that.
You could argue though that Joe Rogan, the Modern Wisdom podcast, they're all podcasts I listen to, but I think that when you're at that, I don't want to say level because that makes it sound like there's some sort of playing field where people are better. I don't necessarily mean that. I mean the
experience though, really, because obviously Joe Rogan's been doing it for years, and if you look back into his first episodes, they won't sound anything like the existing ones he's doing now, will they?
Yeah, and I think maybe it's like a popularity thing. Maybe it's like the more popular they are, the bigger that the guests that they'll get on their show. So just using Modern Wisdom as a podcast, and if you've ever heard of those, they're that's like my favorite podcast to listen to. But he'll have Andrew Huberman come on his show, and it's a huge deal for all of his fans when he has someone like that on there, because he's like a PhD at Stanford University. He's like the biology of the human body. He's like the number one person in the world to listen to about that stuff, about having like ice baths and what they actually do to the body. So it's really, really interesting topics. So for example, I am getting back to a point here. If he releases an episode and it's 4 hours long, for example, or 3.5 hours long, I'll still listen to that episode, but I'll listen to it in those half an hour, 40-minute stints. But I'll always remember to go back to it until I've completed it. So I might go for a run for 40 minutes, but then come home, do some work, and then 5 hours later go shopping. And then in bed at night time, I put them in and listen to it while I'm falling asleep. So yeah, I think that maybe just hold off on the 4 hour long podcast until you get to a point where you've built like a community of people who are like dying for you to drop your next episode.
Yeah, for sure. I think the other one that's quite clear for me is about not having a sponsor or ad revenue. I think a lot of the time you think, again, you're going to be really popular and immediately you could get a sponsorship deal. Again, most sponsors are looking for you to have probably somewhere over 5,000 downloads or listens of an episode. They're looking for you to have subscribers because they're trying to sell their product essentially. And you do have to think about this like a business, because you are investing time, effort and money.
Sure.
And to get something out of it, you need to be consistent, but you also need to understand you're not going to get sponsorship immediately. Great if you do, but don't expect an immediate return on your investment.
Yeah.
It's a growth plan, and it's understanding that this will take time.
Sure. It's like the lowest barrier of entry, right? To start a podcast. Literally anyone could do it. But I think that most people do probably come into it thinking they're just going to make them really rich really quickly. They're going to get really popular. The only thing that I would say back to that is, like, TikTok is so easy to get views on. And I guess to an extent, Instagram is as well for Reels. And I don't know if we'll like touch on this as being like a USP later on, maybe. Yeah. But this situation, what we're doing now, I don't know if I've ever told you this before personally, but this situation of having this mic in front of you is the number one way in the world to stop the scroll. It's actually psychologically it is, because people are scrolling through Instagram and they see two people sat in that vertical mode with the podcast mic in front of them. I think they just automatically assume that person is like a specialist at something. That's why they've been invited on a show. So they stop to scroll, stop the scroll to listen to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember why I'm telling you that.
There's a bit of psychology in there, just in terms of how you get subscribers and
Sure,
followers.
that was it. So I think that's the reason why on places like TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram, Reels and Stories, why they get so many views. And it's sort of, I think it's still, I don't know how much you can really hack the algorithm. I think a lot of it is out of your control. We've had Reels that have hit like 500,000 views, and we've had some that get like 40 views, and we haven't done anything different. So I think that can play into it, because you can obviously approach people and say to them, look, we get on average 5,000 to 6,000 views in our, like we've got the shelving behind us. It wouldn't be any different. It wouldn't ruin the scene too much to put somebody's like branding or logo up behind you. So it could be something that you could reach out to people, but you are right in saying they're not just going to do that right off the bat, unless you're in a really unique situation.
Sure, absolutely. And I think the difference is what we're trying to do at the podcast studio is allow people the opportunity to come and talk about their business, to come and talk about something that's interesting for them or for other people. And certainly in Milton Keynes, I think that this is a brilliant opportunity for people to do that. So this is where we do our sales pitch, Stuart, for the podcast studio. But if I talk a little bit about my experience, and then that kind of helps you think about it.
Don't be too honest.
So again, like I say, I could have set this up at home. I've got a decent mic. I've got and this is where I see you shudder. I've got a webcam that I can use that's fairly decent quality. It's probably 1080p. But I had zero knowledge about how to upload onto YouTube. I had zero knowledge about how to edit episodes and how really to start. And I think that's what I got from coming here was I've got a pre-made set with lighting. I've got lovely mics and I've got lovely cameras that create 4K vision for people on YouTube. And then obviously we've got the sound on Spotify. Again, no idea how I was going to get things uploaded onto streaming channels like Spotify, but that's something that your expertise kind of gave me as well. So I think for me, those are the things that really counted, because that's where I needed the support and the help, really.
Sure. So what do you want me to do?
Yeah, I want you to talk about the podcast studio. Well, give us your elevator pitch. Come on.
Our elevator pitch would be that we are high-end podcast production in a nutshell, in short. Is that good enough? Really? I feel like there should have been loads of information dumped then.
You're the only, well, let's think about this. So this is our working vision, but you're the only studio within the Milton Keynes area that is pre-set up to record and edit podcasts.
Yeah.
In high quality, high definition.
Yeah.
You do the technical bit at the end there, because I'm not quite sure what the end bit says.
Yeah. So yeah, in a nutshell, I think that is, I always think about our USPs and what they are. And I think actually, to be very serious for a moment, our first year in business, our biggest USP from my perspective was that we use 6K cinema line cameras and like cinema glass, so cinema lenses, like the world's best mics and like dynamic lighting setups, like 3-point lighting setups and stuff. I I really like overly did that as well. And I know that a lot of people probably thought that we were quite arrogant about that. We banged on about the fact that I come from 10 years of working with like Sony, Nike, Adidas, Premier League football clubs. So I understand that was a lot. And I think that was just, I don't think it was my ego. I think it was just like, honestly, we are this good. Like our stuff, our equipment is this good, and really wanted to ram that down people's throats. Whereas now I would say, if I had to like list them in an order, like 1, 2, 3, our biggest USP is the fact that you turn up and talk. Like we handle the rest for you. So we do obviously the custom set build. We make obviously mic covers for people, branded signs up if they want them up on the walls, all the way through to the full multi-angle shoot, the edit, the color grade, the audio mix, so that it's polished up and YouTube ready. And then obviously we do all the distribution across all major and minor platforms on a private license, so you don't even have to worry about that. Do all the YouTube management, and then do all the social clips of all their favorite parts as well. So I'd say that's our biggest USP now. Slipped down to the second stage is probably the equipment, which I do think still is very, very important. And especially as podcasts like The Diary of a CEO, Modern Wisdom, more and more people are listening to them as the months go on, which is showing that that's now setting a new base of what something should look and sound like. So when these other studios pop up, the ones that either copy us or they pop up in different areas and they're using Amazon mics that cost them 30 quid, or, you know, cameras that are maybe not as high a quality, that's when you're running into that problem of the quality just not being as good as what the audience is used to listening to. I don't know if there's a third USP really. I think that's really it. Is that we do everything for you, and we have really good equipment, and we've got really good experience doing it. Yeah.
And I think that's all people need, because they're bringing the experience of their industry or their experience of whatever they're talking about on their podcast, and you do the rest for them.
Yeah, we do. Well, we have our losses as well. I think that's a really important thing for us to talk about. This has nothing to do with podcast tips, by the way, for anyone out there.
We've moved on now.
Yeah, we've just moved on to just my mind is just opening up. I think this is why Joe Rogan does 4-hour podcast, by the way, because he says the first hour is whilst he's trying to get into that kind of flow and zone, and then the conversation just runs off.
Well, you warm up and you start thinking about things. You know, when you have a conversation, it doesn't always naturally flow straight into the most important things. How many times have you had a conversation with somebody and it's just as you're saying goodbye that actually you get to the really important bit?
Yeah.
And then suddenly you're like, oh, actually, we could have done with another 2 hours of talking about whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I definitely have adult ADHD as well, so I find it very hard to focus on one thing. I'm already thinking of all these other things that we could talk about on the podcast. But,
So if you wanted a business in Milton Keynes to come and try out the podcast studio, what would you say?
So we're actually going through a bit of a reshuffle around of the way that we do things anyway. I think as well, over the last couple of years, we've been really busy, been massively busy, like every week for the last 2 years, including some weekends. We've pretty much had people in every day or every other day. And that's pulled me away from like operation side of the business. I've just been in here or at home editing till like 2 a.m. And I feel like that led to the business being very blasé about everything. It was kind of like, just come when you want, have a look at the calendar. If it's free, come in. Oh yeah, pay later on kind of thing. There's no terms, so I am circling back around to your thing, but we're over the last couple of weeks really sat down and thought about how can we restructure everything to make it really professional and actually easier to onboard people as well, so they understand. Because I have this weird thing where someone's interested, they come here to the studio, we sit down, we get lost talking about podcasts and what they're going to do and what their idea is, get really excited about it, and then effectively they come in, sit down, we press record, and they're sort of like, okay, what now kind of thing. So I think restructuring our onboarding has been really important for us. But that does tie into your question that that we would say contact form on the website would probably be the best way to come straight through, or DM on Instagram or email, Stuart@ThePodcastStudioMiltonKeynes.com. And yeah, open up a conversation, and we can onboard people properly and give them a whole more info pack of everything that's included.
And I think the good thing is that people can come for a one-off episode and actually get the feel and pay for the one-off episode, and then sign up for a longer term commitment. So there is a no stress, no fuss commitment to one episode, see how you get on with that one episode, and then move on. What I would say from my experience of doing the podcast is you need at least 10 in the bag. And I'm just about to drop the 10th episode, but you need at least 10 in the bag.
Already?
Yeah, already at number 10. Wow. You need at least 10 in the bag to really get into the rhythm of what you're talking about. But you also have to give it a go sometimes and see, can I, am I going to freeze in front of a camera? Because I know you've been in this situation, and I've certainly been in this situation where I've been behind the camera talking to people and trying to get them to open up. And as soon as you put them in front of a camera, they suddenly go, and freeze, and they can't talk about whatever it is, even if they are experts in that. So it's coming along, give it a go, £250 for one episode. Give it a go.
Yeah. And also, this is just an idea. I'm just like live talking to you about stuff like this. But I did think about doing, there's a couple of like studios. They're not podcast studios. They're just other like photography, film studios or content spaces that do I think they brand it as like a CEO day. So they'll have like business owners that come in. I did think about doing like a day like that, where we reach out to all the business owners in Milton Keynes and say, look, there's only going to be 10 slots because we don't want to work for longer than 10 hours. You'll come into the studio, there'll be a preset built for you already. All the mics and that be set up. It's this amount of money. It'll be, fractionally less than what it would be anyway. Come in, pay your amount, and see how you feel about what it looked like, what you sounded like. And the worst thing that you'd get from that is that you've used your time. The best thing you'd get from that is you've got an hour video talking about your business. You can use it for the next 6 months.
And media. You've got an experienced interviewer that can interview you for that whole day.
Exactly. I definitely wouldn't do that. I will stay firmly behind the camera. But I have thought about having our own podcast. But the problem is, I just know that I'd waffle on too much. Because I did want to do something similar where we had like quote unquote the Milton Keynes show podcast kind of thing, and it was speaking to businesses, brands, but like influencers, sports people, basically anyone from Milton Keynes with a story to share, having them come on the show, having a format and doing that, and obviously hosting it myself in my hoodie and whatnot, because I'm just being honest, there is a hidden agenda there of like, they're going to come to the studio and be like, wow, this is amazing, it looks really cool. And obviously they're going to go back, they can tell their friends they're on it. When they share it online, their business is technically sharing my podcast studio. So
and that I think is a real thing that people need to think about when they are creating podcasts is, who's your support network? So is it, your community, your friends, your business network, whoever it is, because it can feel a bit like when you don't get subscribers immediately or people saying, oh, it's amazing. I get generally good feedback. My mum gives me a couple of pages of feedback after every episode. Cheers, mum. Thanks for that. And I appreciate that, because that tells me where I'm going and which direction. Everyone is going to hear something different, but you need that feedback. And when you're a small business, you actually need people to be following you and to be liking your content. I've got friends in the travel industry, so I'll give them a quick shout out. Go travel and cruise with Rob and Adam. And I like every single post that they do, and I share as much as I can, or I'll comment if I can, if I feel like I've got something to add for them, because they're a small business, and that is how they grow their follower count on the social media platforms. On LinkedIn, whenever I post about the podcast, I'm always recorded and filmed and edited at the Podcast Studio MK, because that's what's needed for a small business, is the likes, the shares, the comments, so on and so forth. And that's where you want people to be doing that, because that's how you grow. And a rising tide lifts all ships, right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that's a really important thing as well, is sort of what you touched on, but building a community as well. You spoke about how like the whole views thing and subscribers and stuff like that. So
this probably goes back to a little tip actually.
Mm-hmm.
When many years ago, 2019, I think it was, I started a YouTube channel because I got really into like productivity. As you can probably tell from like the books and stuff we have in the studio, like I love that world, like self-development and personal development. And I started a YouTube channel around it. And what I did was, I was really strategic. I made a Google, is Google Excel? It's not, is it? Microsoft is Excel.
Yeah.
It was Microsoft for me back then. I wasn't in the Apple ecosystem. I created an Excel sheet of all the Facebook groups that were relevant to like personal development, and then even had like sections within them that was like maybe based around like minimalism or like how to be more productive at work or whatever it was. But I had a list of maybe 100 Facebook groups, and then I would go into them, and like you said, I'd drop a comment if it was valuable or whatnot. I'd sort of build myself as a bit of a personal name in that sort of area. And then when I released a new video on YouTube, I would go and paste the link for that YouTube into every single Facebook group, which can be a little bit spammy, but I think if you don't do it that often and it's genuinely adding value to the people, not just to like, go and watch this video please, just like, oh, I've just made, you could say for example, this is really random, but say for example, I cleared out my entire wardrobe and I just had like really neat hanging t-shirts in there. I could go to a minimalism group on Facebook and be like, oh, this is how I minimize my new wardrobe. Do you know what I mean? So it's I think that's a really, really good way. But I got to 10,000 subscribers in about 7 months from doing that. Yeah. And I still, in a probably real oversharing way, I still make a little bit of money off that YouTube channel. It's not a lot. It's like £100 or something a month, but I haven't done anything for like 6 years. Still something better than nothing, isn't it? Yeah. Maybe that's what we need to find, is some marketeers to help us do things in the future. Because I definitely think from a podcasting perspective, it'd be great if someone kind of said to me, here's, you know, kind of how you build some of this content and how you can build out your marketing profile. Yeah. Can I say something else as well? Yeah. So the other thing that I think is in our future for us that I think would be really exciting for people, including yourself probably. So there's a lady called Rochelle, been speaking to her for some time. I think when we both find time properly, we're going to go and sit down, have coffee and stuff and see how it works. But she has done a lot of marketing and PR for like, you know, Bose speakers, like big brands like that. She does like PR campaigns and stuff for them. And the eventual goal would be, in a non-arrogant way, we have definitely nailed podcast production. Regardless of what anyone thinks of us or what anyone says, we are the number one by a long shot. I can rest easy at night. And not even in an arrogant way. Our cameras are overkill for a podcast. They don't need to be that good. Our lenses are probably the best lenses that are compatible with that camera. Our mics are the world's best, not one of the best mics in the world. So everything about our production, I feel like we've nailed. Service-wise and delivering on the back end of that needs work for sure. We do. And I think that comes down to having people come and join us so that they can do that work, because it's a lot to do all myself. But after the fact, people are left in the dark. A podcast is, so they can come here and they can have the 6K cameras and they can have all of this and it looks beautiful and it sounds great and it's excellent, but you hit upload on YouTube, if it's going out to nobody, eventually they are going to leave, and that then does come back on us as well, because then we lose out on clients. So circling back, Rochelle, PR lady, maybe having that as an add-on to the end of our service at some point, and it will be almost, I think at the start, an external cost to us. It won't actually be into it, but she'll be partnered with the podcast studio Milton Keynes, and she will, for those who want it, take that on, and that will it'll be seriously big. Like it will be, she will get you in like magazines and newspaper articles and maybe like featured on websites that are relevant to your sort of stuff, and probably help with getting you bigger guests and stuff as well. Well, folks, you heard it here first. This is what's coming up at the podcast studio in Milton Keynes. You want to be part of the journey, then jump on board. £250 for one episode. How can you not do that? It's time to jump on board and get into the podcasting world. Get in touch with Stuart, follow us on Instagram, and get in touch. We'll see you soon.